Hi guys, the post lady just dropped this off for me. Let's see how he looks put together.
Scruffy Crow.
Okay, here he is put together. There's no glue or anything involved, he's just balanced together. He comes in more parts than any other Reaper model I've ever put together. Here's a little view of what it'll look like on a 50 by 100mm base. I think you'll fill that out perfectly well. And obviously he's not the biggest giant in the world, but then compared to these dwarves I'm painting, he is certainly a giant in relation to them. Let's find a human. Oh yeah, compared to a human, he is also giant. So cool, I'm going to clean up the rest of this mold and put him together. Okay, so yeah, I've put him all together now. This is the most parts of any Reaper Bones mini I've ever seen before. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts, which is not many, and obviously it was fairly intuitive, but I've never seen a Bones mini in that many parts. I've even seen ones that have been I've even seen minis that have become pre-glued before, so I wonder if there's a slight change in the way they're doing things. I've also gone around and cleaned up any mould lines. Now obviously this is Reaper Bones material, so here are the offcuts, the sort of sprues, and that's the sort of material. It's quite flexible, kind of rubbery, and you can't use a file on it. Like, it just sort of makes a mess. Though actually that's not too bad. I wonder if it's not the normal, but yeah, it's not a nice thing. So if you want to clean mold lines on this stuff, you're best off just sort of carving it carefully. And if you're carving it, you can kind of get quite neat control over that, and you can easily sort of take mold lines off. I also did a little bit of green stuff. The neck was the most noticeable bit, and then there was a little bit of a gap around one side of the hand, but not so much as you'd really notice. You could have probably got away with it. On here there was like a little well injection mark, and I actually dug that a little bit deeper and covered it with green stuff just to completely hide it. But once again, I was just being a bit picky. But yeah, you went to go perfectly fine. And the base I've put him on is just a bit of plasticard. Cut that into the 50 by 100, and I put a couple of layers of my trusty cork. Partly that was just to lift him up a little bit, because obviously the original angle sort of like, you know, flat. His head's kind of like looking down, straight across. Whereas if I just lift him a little bit, like I have, you can kind of see into his face and get a little bit more of that detail from the top than you would have. So when he's on the table, you just be able to see a little bit more of his face, which I think is worthwhile. So yeah, so I'm going to keep working on the base now. I've got this tube of wood filler. This tube has seen better days, so we'll have to see if we can even get anything out of this. The Bones packaging is actually quite good for this sort of thing. Sometimes. There we go, just squeezing a bit of this out. Good old drink stir here, this will do. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and flatten up this one side. We'll keep this nice texture on the front, but we'll just, simple as that, we'll just flatten it out on the back. So it looks like a slight hill, craggy on the front. And I'll probably base this with the same Luke's APS basing as I'm using on the rest of my dwarves. You could use any filler for this, you could use much cheaper filler than this, but I find, although I will use cheaper filler for terrain, this stuff is my go-to for bases because it dries a lot denser and a lot harder. In general, it's just a lot easier to work with for models. So there we go, there's all the filler on. What we'll do is I'll leave that like that for a little while, let it mostly dry, and then I'll go back in a little while when it's So there's all the filler on, basically where I want it all. But what I'll do is I'll wait until it's partially dry, and I'll go back and I'll just clean up any bits where I've hit the model, or move any more bits around exactly where I want it. But I think I've achieved the sort of gradual hill look that I was going for, and make his slightly tilted pose a bit more natural. I'll probably also give this a thin coat of PVA before I paint it, because I won't be putting sand on top of this like I normally would. I'll be using the Luke's APS basing after I've painted it, which isn't my normal way around. So this is going to be a bit of an experiment. So yeah, just to make sure the paint takes and everything looks alright, I'll seal it a little bit. So I'm aware that this guy is a little bit short for a giant. He's only, what's that, sort of 6 or 7 centimetres tall, compared to other giants. So here's the Games Workshop giant, who is taller than by a head at least. But I think he fills out this base quite nicely, and I think compared to my dwarves, he's definitely a giant. And I like these bonus giants because they're not, you know, I looked at the sort of Mantic giant or a couple of other options, and not only is this guy super affordable, which is kind of the theme of this first army, but he's also just easy to put in a box, easy to pack, easy to get hold of. You know, there's a lot of pluses to having this little diddy guy. I mean, here's the ogres I'll be using. So he's significantly bigger than an ogre. So I think he's perfectly adequate as a giant. Okay, so I've put a thin layer of PVA on top of all the filler to seal that down, make sure it takes the paint nicely. And while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to undercoat. I'm going to use the spray undercoat that I'm going to use on this bit of sprue. Because I have heard some sort of horror stories about spray kind of making the models all sticky and never curing. So I want to make sure that the spray I'm using at the moment and this plastic are compatible. You can, and I have before, just paint straight onto these bones models, but I don't like to, and I want. You can, and I have before, just paint straight onto these bones models, but I don't really like to, and I'd rather just have the nice black undercoat that I'm used to working with, and also it'll help to undercoat all the cork and filler and everything, and the base, which I know won't take the paint as easily. So let's try this bit out. Okay, so yeah, I tested on this little bit of sprue, and that has come out fine. So there's a nice matte covering. That's using the High Coat Matte Black, which is now my go-to spray. So let's get some paint on this guy. Okay, we've got another advantage of this bones material. This guy's about 80% painted right now, and I'm happy with the way he's turning out. But I thought these random strings here would look better if they were supporting a shield, just like the ones I've been giving my dwarves, which are of course drawing pins. And I've already tested this, but I wasn't quite happy with the placement. I want it to look like it's coming down off these two. So it's like hanging like that. And actually I found that I was able just to push the drawing pin into the torso, like he was a cork board. And there we have it. I can move that around because it's all just on the pin. And we can twist that whichever way we want it up. I think that looks alright. I think it kind of looks like it's hung off those. And I'll just put some highlights on that and paint it along with the rest of the model now. And that'll add a bit of uniformity, even though he does already have the tattoo. Okay, so I'm finally happy with the paint job on the giant. I think he's turned out quite nicely. Pretty happy with his tattoos. Little shield on there. Yeah, I think he's nice. So just to finish him off, we're going to do some basing. For this, I'm going to use this Geek Gaming Scenic Space Ready range. I think this is like Tundra or something. So I'll probably do a separate video on this stuff, or possibly already have. And it's a mixture of sand and gravel and flock, and some pebbles and stuff. And we're going to apply it using the Geek Gaming Fast Drying Basing Glue. Okay, looks like it's Christmas. I've slathered the whole base everywhere I want the basing to end, so pretty much anywhere apart from these little cliff edges, with the basing glue now. Probably a mil or so in some areas, a couple of mil. And we're gonna, in theory you just dunk it in here, but I'm probably gonna artfully arrange a couple of rocks first. Just to make sure we get some nice in there. And I'm just going to start dumping this on top. So because I'm pretty comfortable about where I got the glue and how this is going to turn out, I'm just going to leave this to dry at least overnight, if not until this time tomorrow. Okay, so it's the next day. As you can see, the glue that I used yesterday has dried into rubber. So we'll lift this guy out of the sand. And that is a nice, quite natural looking base. I'm quite happy with the way that's come out. Overall, there he is, painted and based. And I think he is going to be a marvellous addition to my my dwarf army. I might just touch up a bit of paint on the base where it's worn off there. But yeah, I'm really happy with him. I think he's come out really nicely. Here's a video of him next to a Oathmark dwarf hero for a bit of scale. And that's all for this video. Please let me know what you thought down in the comments. Maybe subscribe for more. And as ever, thanks for watching. Bye.